Welcome, my 95 subscribers, everyone on Wrestling Reddit, and all of you relatively new talent who managed to beat former world champions who are like legends in the sport. Welcome to my review of AEW Dynamite Fight for the Fallen for the July 28, 2022 show. So I had the dates mixed up. I thought it was going to be in August the 7th, but apparently it was the week after the review that I didn't release last week. So yeah, I'm still going to be releasing that, but after this, since there's a dearth of wrestling shows this week. We do have Ric Flair's last match, but that's going to be on like Monday, and I'm going to be leaving by then. Or I could review this next week, because I'm looking at the card right now, and it's fucking stacked. But that's for next week. So I might review this, last week's Dynamite, and maybe the Tokyo Joshi Pro Princess Tournament quarterfinals. And then Ric Flair's last match for next week. So yeah, let's begin. So we start off the night with the World Championship match between Jon Moxley and Rush. So I don't like that they keep putting the world title as the opener, or like very low on the card. This should be a main event. I mean, Mox main events Dynamites all the time. And this time, this guy might be the best opponent he's had for like weeks. This is Rush we're talking about, and he should have main evented against Jon Moxley. He won at Death Before Dishonor, unlike the guy who main evented this show. So I'm kind of disappointed. I think the Danielson match should have come in second to the last, and this should have main evented, but yeah. I don't like the match placements here by AEW. So we start the match off with Rush attacking Jon Moxley as he makes his like entry into the ring. He manages to do his entrance like through the crowd and stuff, but when he gets in the ring, Rush attacks him because Rush is a heel and it's totally in character for him. So I didn't get the memo that this was going to be a no DQ match. So I was surprised when Rush was trying to go for weapons and Mox started bleeding. This turned out to be a no DQ match, and yeah, this made the match better, definitely. And I think fucking Jon Moxley just likes to bleed every match. He's kind of like Ric Flair, or it might be like a tribute to Ric Flair's last match or something. But yeah, Rush causes Jon Moxley to bleed after biting him. But yeah, Mox rolls out the ring and then was clearly bleeding as he went for like the chair on the side where Kip Sabian is. So Rush dominates this opening part of the match, but Mox evens this out, turns it into an actual match when he does like his usual suicide dive on Rush. And then he does a 6 suplex to the outside. And yeah, as for the match going forward, this was actually a lot more hard-hitting, a lot more stiff, and a lot faster paced than Jon Moxley's usual matches. Because those usually plod, especially the one against Brody King. I really didn't like that one. And the match against Daniel Garcia was like just slow as fuck and was pretty boring. I didn't like that one very much either. It was actually pretty overrated by other review sites. But for this one, it falls in the category of like Konosuke Takeshita, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and now Rush. Because Rush gives him a fight, he brings it to Moxley. They actually go for some pretty cool spots and not just like lie down on the floor or like plod and do rest holds or like go outside, go to the guardrail and then do some really soft punches, because I hate that shit. And Mox does that a lot. But for this one, you could hear like the chops. So that's a big plus for this match. And they actually go for some pretty cool stuff that will be included in spots of the match. And there's also a distraction here that I think works, but what they achieved in the distraction sort of doesn't, because Mox isn't the most like agile guy. He can't really make like himself being crushed on the ropes look a lot better. Because Andrade interferes here. He pushes Mox to the ropes, leading Mox to crotch himself, and this looked too controlled and too scripted to be that believable. Because if this was someone else, if this was like a Rey Fenix or something, or a Kenny Omega, you would feel it. They would sell the shit out of like a crotching moment. But Mox here doesn't really. It was more of him trying to stay on the ropes. And the crowd usually reacts with like a huge "oh" and stuff. But for this one, yeah, you could feel that they weren't convinced by this crotching. And so Andrade gets chased off by the Lucha Bros, progressing their feud even more. So after this, Rush goes for the sickest spot of the entire match that I'll talk about later, and then we get to the finishing sequence. So the finish here was Rush sets up Mox for his running dropkick to the corner. He does like so much taunting. He does a taunt when he's like right next to Mox, and then another one when he's like ready on the other side of the ring. This was highlighted by JR. And so this gives Mox enough time to escape, choke Rush out, and then hit him with the Death Rider. And I love how they make Rush look strong here. He kicks out of the Death Rider, forcing Mox to use a Bulldog choke, making Rush pass out. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. So number 3 is this sequence here, where Mox and Rush have a stiff chop battle. It leads to German suplexes, a discus elbow by Rush, and then a hard lariat by Mox. This really displays the match pace, that it's not like Mox's usual matches. Number 2 spot is the finish. I like how, because of Rush's arrogance, his like ingovernable cockiness, his tranquiloness, cost him the match. I also like how the finish made him look strong. He kicked out of Mox's finisher, and that's the strong version of his finisher. It's a Death Rider, which is like superior to a paradigm shift, and that he only lost because he fainted from a Bulldog choke. I think this made him look really strong and was a decent finish for this match. And then for the number 1 spot of the match, it has to be this pile driver, this fucking sick straight jacket pile driver that offers pretty much no protection if it goes wrong for the guy taking it. Like, basically, all the protection here comes from Rush. And he managed to protect Mox here. Mox didn't spike his head, he didn't get Austined or something, and the move still looked sick. So yeah, this match was a pay-per-view undercard TV main event level match. I think this should have like main evented the show. I mean, Mox main events Dynamite like pretty much all the time, so why not have this one main event? So if I'd rank this among the post Double or Nothing Moxley matches, post CM Punk injury, this would rank number 3. Number 1 is Tanahashi, number 2 is Konosuke, and this is number 3. But this is like on the upper level of that. Because like the rest of Mox's singles matches were pretty slow, plodding, and just straight up boring. And yeah, I'm looking forward for like another match between these two, or finally a match between Andrade and Mox. Because that's who I think should have won the interim title. Or like at least should have challenged Mox for it. And not Kyle O'Reilly or something. Because that's Andrade. He's gonna be a top heel of the company soon. He's in like one of the most interesting new factions of this entire fucking show. And he should have a title shot or something. Hopefully after this Lucha Bros feud. So after this, after the match, JAS show up with their newest member, Anna Jay. She cuts a promo, but it isn't the best yet. But I think this will definitely help Anna Jay's development. I think that more of her personality will show as a heel. And I think the hotness, the beauty, and like basically her current skill in wrestling suits sports entertainer more than babyface Dark Order. And that promo wasn't the best, but if their intention was to go sports entertainer, that is as sports entertainer as it gets, because Anna Jay's voice just like breaks as she's declaring that she's gonna choke everyone out. I mean, she was getting boring as a member of the Dark Order anyway, so why not put her with a pretty entertaining faction that aims to be such. So yeah, aside from this, Jericho declares that his guys are gonna win their matches tonight, that JAS have been on a roll. He beat Eddie Kingston, but at the cost of his nose. And then he challenges Moxley for a shot at the AEW title in about 2 weeks at Quake at the Lake. And I think the specials are losing their meaning if they're happening like every other week or something. They should go back to the regular Dynamites because this is like getting pretty ridiculous. You should like space these out for the months that there's no pay-per-view. And then Mox gets his chance to reply, to retort, and then he cuts a pretty banger promo. I think it's his best in weeks. He trashes the shit out of the JAS. He pretty much buries them. He buries the whole faction, all of their like gimmicky words like Galaxy. He buries all of Chris Jericho's personas. And he asks to face Lionheart Chris Jericho, the last surviving graduate of the Heart Dungeon. And so yeah, Mox just dropped some wrestling history while delivering it very well. This just further supports my statement that this should have been the main event, because this would have been a sick ending. So yeah, let's move on to the next segment. So after this, we have the announcement for the 6-man tag team championships. They do it on commentary. Excalibur makes a joke that Taz, him, and Jim Ross aren't the tag team champions. Very easy joke to make. Jim Ross did not approve of said joke, but I did. But yeah, so now we have the Trios Championships. Tony Khan sort of spoiled the winners. He said he'll be waiting for Kenny and the Young Bucks for him to introduce the belts, so this is a sign that Kenny's coming back. And they're probably gonna win it, given Tony Khan's booking style. But if it were me, if I were Tony Khan, I would hold the belts off of them for just a bit more time. I think Miro, Darby, and Sting should be in that tournament. And I think they're going to lose to the House of Black. And the House of Black are going to take the Trios titles. They're the hotter team. And I think Kenny and the Bucks will be better chasing the titles. Because Kenny's just coming back. The Bucks are fresh off of title losses. So if you put the titles on them right away, I think it would be like a bad idea. It would get heat for them. And the House of Black aren't the main bad guys of the show yet, so I think this is a good way to like build them up in order to make them the top team in the whole company, like the top faction in the company. So yeah, what I want is just for Kenny and the Bucks to not get the titles yet. Because if they do, it would be very predictable. Tony Khan spoiled it. It might make a lot of talent in the back mad. I think Tony should give this to House of Black. So A, to keep them happy, B, to build House of Black up, and C, to make the story more interesting. So yeah, next segment. Okay, so after this we have like Dante Martin cutting a promo. He's gonna bring his real-life girlfriend to ringside. And this was alright. He doesn't sound as robotic anymore, and he's far from "I appreciate the faith that you have in my potential, but on Rampage, I will defeat you." He's like far away from that. He's a lot better now, but still not Dynamite quality for me. But yeah, he's getting there. And as for the manager that he got, I would have wanted it to be someone like of a bigger name, or just have him like not announce this manager, because I mean, nobody knows who Sky Blue is. I forgot when she was on Dynamite. I think she's like on Dark and on Rampage, but no, not Dynamite. Just like in TEW, segments like this only get high scores if the people you introduce like this are over or are popular. So this whole thing here was a bit meh. Promo was fine, but the announcement was a bit shit. So after this is the Ricky Starks versus Danhausen match for the FTW Championship. And it ended in like a minute and 30. But it's like Danhausen, so it doesn't really hurt him if he gets pretty much squashed. What I didn't like is what happened after. Okay, so basically Ricky Starks and Danhausen pretty much got the crowd chanting. The crowd was pretty loud for this one and the like follow-up match, but for what they were trying to accomplish in the match that came next, I think this should have been longer. Like, this should have been at least like 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Or the next match should have been longer than like a minute plus. Because both of his defenses against Danhausen and Hook took about like 3 minutes total in match time. And if you were trying to make Ricky Starks look strong, one of those matches should have been longer. Maybe the Danhausen match, like maybe make it 5 minutes and then have the Hook defense be like 7 or 10 minutes. Because basically we had 2 squash matches right after another. And I think they built Hook too strong too early. He's a small dude, maybe like the same size as Ricky Starks, and you're building him like he's as strong as Wardlow. And this is a mistake. Maybe not yet. Have him look like Taz before you push him this hard. And I would have appreciated if him and Ricky Starks were like even, on like an even footing. The match would take like longer, but Ricky Starks is too tired because he just had like maybe a 5-minute match with Danhausen earlier. So yeah, I think this was a fucking mistake on how Ricky Starks lost the belt. This was more of a way just to hand the lowest value title of the entire show to Hook, who you're booking very strongly. It doesn't really do much to Starks for me. I mean, if it wasn't for the promo that came after the Hook match and the fist bump, this would have been like an F. This would have been like the worst thing in the entire show for me. But Ricky Starks made it something when he cut that killer promo right after. And when Powerhouse Hobbs, his fellow Team Taz member, turned on him, turned heel, turned Ricky Starks face, which I think Ricky Starks can do. I think face or heel, Ricky Starks is capable of giving us a great and compelling character. But yeah, the matches were bad booking. I think they should have been longer, especially the Hook match, if you really wanted to make Ricky Starks look stronger. But the post-match segment was perfect. And that's 100% on Starks. He fucking carried Hook and fucking Hobbs through this entire thing. So yeah, this is now one of the feuds that I'm gonna look forward to, even if the matches earlier were like shit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see Ricky Starks versus Powerhouse Hobbs. Hopefully he doesn't leave for the WWE, because that's what's predicted to happen. So yeah, didn't like the booking here, but Ricky Starks is a fucking star. So after this is a promo backstage by the Acclaimed. It's them trashing the Ass Boys, how they beat them in the rap battle on Rampage, and that they'll be having a special stipulation match that will be announced in a music video that they're gonna release on Rampage. And yeah, that's probably gonna be good or cringy, but the Acclaimed are on fire right now. Nobody seems to hate what they do. They're super over with the crowd. And I think their thing with the Ass Boys really elevated their status and made them develop into what they are today, which is now like great promos, very entertaining when they're not wrestling. But as for the wrestling side, I've still yet to see it. But it has to be like mixed in with a few comedy stuff. Like their match with the Ass Boys doesn't have to be a banger, but it just has to have a lot of storyline things. It has to have like a lot of comedy bits in order to be adequate. But if they wanted to like put it over the top, have it be a great match as well. So yeah, really good backstage segment by the Acclaimed. Way to get more viewers for Rampage. Let's move on to the next match. Okay, so the next match is Sammy Guevara versus Dante Martin one-on-one with their managers or their real-life partners or girlfriends at ringside. Okay, so I saw the news that Dante Martin was hurt right before I watched this. So for this whole air show that they do, I was looking for where this could have happened. And there was a lot. Some of these could even be the spots of the match. And it's unfortunate. But you can't really tell these guys to like stop doing what makes yourself special. Or like what makes them stand out. Because high-flying wrestling is the thing of Dante Martin especially. While Sammy Guevara has a little more in his arsenal other than the high-flying. But that's what really brings the crowd in. So for you motherfuckers, go watch Smoky Mountain Wrestling or like AWA or WWE or whatever that's called before, where they would just like punch each other the whole match and nothing would happen, and it would make all the old heads come. Go watch that shit instead. So they start off the match with like Dante Martin mocking Sammy Guevara. His in-ring charisma is getting better, but there are still some like inappropriate screams. Also, like, why scream anyway? If he kicked out of your finisher, maybe do that. But you're supposed to be peace, love, and pro wrestling, Dante Martin. But yeah, this is the most personality I've seen from Dante in ring ever, which is a step in the right direction, but is still like cringe. I mean, it's a bit cringe. And as for Sammy, he's a former TNT champion. He's been like on the upper mid card of AEW. He has a vlog where he can hone all of his like charisma and like speaking ability. And yeah, his in-ring charisma is like an S class. And as for the managers, come on. Tay Conti, so much more personality than Sky Blue. Sky Blue barely does anything at ringside while Tay Conti like does all she can. Sky Blue doesn't even attack Tay. And that's what should have happened at least. And yeah, finally for the match itself, it's an air show. They do a lot of crazy stuff, and I think I finally spotted where Dante was injured. It started from the flip from the top, and then he landed. I think it started there. He does a flip from the top turnbuckle. He lands like straight on his leg. Come on. Like from a very high height. And then you land on your leg. Of course that's gonna hurt something. And then after this, even if he knows his knee is fucked, or maybe he was selling, we don't know that, but he's hurt. Guys, he's hurt. So yeah, he does like this like springboard moonsault and then lands on his legs again. He visibly buckles. And then when Sammy goes for like the flying cutter, Dante's knee lands badly, and then yeah, you could see it there. It lands like to its side. It external rotates. And that's the right side. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. So, honorable mention is when Dante Martin mocked Sammy's taunt, where he like took a break on the floor and then did the Sammy like arm spread out thing. This was my favorite like non-wrestling thing of this match, my favorite taunt spot, because the other one is like completely unnecessary, where like Dante just like launches himself up, he lands back in the ring, and then they suddenly face off. That was completely unnecessary. And actually a lot of like dives by these guys, especially Dante Martin, could have been saved for a pay-per-view or something. So yeah. And for the actual spots in the match, so number 3 is this like sit down half Nelson slam that Dante does. So yeah, I really miss the full Nelson slam. Only Lance Archer does it now, but this is like almost like close enough to that. But it starts with a half Nelson, but the landing is like of a full Nelson slam. Number 2 spot is the knee that Sammy Guevara does to Dante when Dante does an outside dive. They had real nice timing here, and this just looked cool. Doing a strike, maybe a forearm, a clothesline, or like a knee or a kick to anyone who is like coming from being airborne will always be cool. And for the number 1 spot of the match, it is the spot that did it. The spot that injured Dante. It was certainly the most visually impressive, so it's when Dante does a springboard off of like one side of the ropes, he moonsaults, and then lands to his leg, and then like right after that, like right away, Sammy does like a springboard cutter and takes Dante out, along with his right knee. And then after this, we get to the finish. Sammy does a GTH and then pins Dante Martin 1, 2, 3. So yeah, this would have been a really fun show stealer match if I didn't know that someone was about to get hurt going in. It would be like a TV main event or pay-per-view undercard match, like early in the undercard. It didn't have much storytelling. The managers, especially Sky Blue, didn't really factor into the match. They were just window dressing. Tay Conti's distraction to Dante pretty much is what leads to his downfall, but there should be like a back and forth there. Sky Blue should have done something. Come on. So yeah, hopefully Dante Martin gets well soon. Hopefully it's not an ACL tear or something, God forbid. So after the match, we get a post-match beatdown. Sammy and Tay beat the shit out of Sky Blue and Dante. Anna Jay comes in. She contributes to this, but then Eddie Kingston, Ruby Soho, and Ortiz make the save and chase them off. And then this leads to the match made at Rampage between Sky Blue and Ruby Soho against Anna Jay and Tay Conti. So I don't know if I'm going to review Rampage. I'm probably not. It's just not one of those big Rampages anymore. The main event is like Matt Sydal against Lee Moriarty. How the hell is that going to convince anyone to watch the show? I know I won't. So yeah, after this is Daniel Garcia's backstage interview with Tony Schiavone. And it's him basically just ragging on Bryan Danielson for missing time from his injury. He sort of implies him being lazy after being out, for very legitimate reasons, mind you. But he basically implies Danielson's being lazy, spending too much time with his family, getting softer. This is all really nice stuff, but he sounds more like a member of the Blackpool Combat Club, like I've been saying for the past few weeks. But his delivery is very nice. This was a nice, effective promo that I hope doesn't end in Danielson saying, "You keep my family out your fucking mouth!" and then slaps Garcia. Because that usually happens in movies like Green Street or just like any other feud in wrestling. Like with that one feud with AJ Styles, I forgot. But when you mention someone's like kids or something, even if they're not the main point of the promo, the babyface will make it about their kids. And I think that's really fucking dumb. Because if I were the heel, I would legitimately ask the person, have you been fucking listening to what I've been saying this whole time? This whole entire well-delivered promo that I just did? Yeah, I hate it when that happens, and I hope it doesn't happen here. We'll find out in about, like, 40 minutes or, like, 50 minutes or so. So yeah, next segment. So after this is, like, a backstage promo by the team of Sonjay Dutt, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh, where it turns from serious to incredibly comedic within a couple of seconds, because these three right here basically call out the best friends. They go from a feud with Samoa Joe, and now they're out of contention, and now they're gonna go for the best friends just to like get their win back or something. But then the best friends show up, and then they do like a Marty McFly. Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, and Orange Cassidy challenge Sonjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, and Jay Lethal to like a 6-man tag team match. But they call Sonjay Dutt chicken, basically. They say he doesn't have it anymore, that he's washed up. And this triggers the shit out of Sonjay Dutt like it does Marty McFly. And then he accepts. And then after Sonjay Dutt accepts, he regrets it. He remembers that he can't wrestle anymore, and then he's screwed. And then he like loudly says this, and this is so fucking funny. Sonjay Dutt is gold every time he's on TV. It like switches on his brain that he's screwed. Why didn't you stop me? This might be segment of the night. This here was fucking amazing. Sonjay Dutt, MVP of this team. But after watching Rampage, he's the one that gets pinned. So yeah, spoilers if you still care. So after that segment of the night, like level segment, we get another one with Jungle Boy cutting a promo in the ring to address Christian's comments about him for the past few weeks. So he's back together with Luchasaurus. The heel turn was pretty pointless. It might have just like strengthened their relationship or something. That Luchasaurus will forever be loyal to Jungle Boy. But still, for me, that was a waste. There should have been a match between Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus built up for the next pay-per-view, and then have the Christian versus Jungle Boy match further down the line. Or like have the match with Luchasaurus next month in like a special Dynamite or something. But yeah, missed opportunity. But Jungle Boy really showed his promo chops right here. And the story is still going somewhere that makes sense and could still be good. It's still salvageable, everyone. If Luchasaurus turns, I'm calling BS. I would not know how to feel about that, but it's probably like a bit negative. But thankfully, Jungle Boy addressed it in his promo right here. And I think there is no heel turn that's coming. Like a re-heel turn. So yeah. So for Jungle Boy's promo, he comes out swinging. He calls Christian a pussy. He points out the pettiness of this entire feud. That the reason why Christian attacked him was like so fucking small. was so insignificant in his mind that it can't be the actual reason. And then he says the actual reason is because Christian's wife divorced him. He does like a call me thing. I mean, it says on the internet that Christian is still married, so this is probably not real. He goes for it anyway. He goes like that route in order to insult Christian. He gets in a few zingers about guys in turtlenecks having small dicks. It pops the shit out of the crowd. He says that this contributed to the fake divorce, which also pops the crowd. And then he addressed the Luchasaurus situation where Luchasaurus only sided with Christian to like save Christian for Jungle Boy's return. Protect Christian for Jungle Boy to be the only guy to kick his ass. And I think this is a really nice dynamic in the feud. Luchasaurus was like a double agent. He's not easily manipulated. He is indeed a dinosaur with a master's degree. Luchasaurus ain't dumb. And then Jungle Boy starts going for the like sympathy route. He remembers his father and stuff, but this is thankfully interrupted by Christian, who doesn't really have much bite this time. He just says he knows Jungle Boy's secrets, that Luchasaurus should have sided with him, and that he's gonna use the weaknesses to defeat Jungle Boy. But this is like so vague that we don't know what's gonna happen next. I mean, what the hell can Christian do? He's like down 1 against 2. And if Marco's stunt somehow returns, it's gonna be 1 on 3. Or like 1 on 2.5. So yeah, this really brought down this segment, but I can still appreciate it for what Jungle Boy did. Like the promo he cut, the zingers he said, him showing the most personality that he ever did in his entire career. So yeah, for the 3/4 of this whole thing where Jungle Boy was talking, this could have been segment of the night. But for that final fourth where Christian started spouting vague nonsense, not really much. So yeah, I still liked the previous segment better. And then after this, we have like a backstage... I don't know what this is called. It's like a backstage like tease for the trios titles. It's just the Bucks going around the back until they bump into an old friend, Hangman Page. They sort of tease a reunion, but then this is all spoiled. This is all broken up when the Dark Order show up and then greet Hangman Page a happy birthday. And then this ends awkwardly where the Dark Order are just staring at the Young Bucks. It looks like there's gonna be a fight, but then the Young Bucks just like blow it off. They greet Hangman a happy birthday and then they leave. And then Brandon Cutler just like points out the awkwardness of the situation. And then this is like the end of the entire segment. This is number 2 segment of the night for me. I'm a fan of the Bucks and all of the Bullet Club stuff back in the day. And this is a nice tease to the Hung Bucks, but that's not gonna happen. It's probably gonna be like Page and Reynolds and Silver in the tournament. And the Bucks are obviously gonna tag with Kenny because Tony Khan fucking spoiled it a couple of months ago. So yeah, very entertaining segment. I love the Young Bucks. I love Adam Page. I enjoy the Dark Order. And I'm excited for the Trios tournament. And especially for Kenny Omega's return because he's the reason why I think most people started watching AEW. So yeah, number 2 segment of the entire night so far. So after this is, I think, the stupidest fucking match of the entire night. And I'm automatically gonna rank this the lowest because, come on. Tony Nese deserves better than this, and he should be like challenging for titles, wrestling show stealers. But come on, man. This feud was built on a punch by a non-wrestler that knocked Tony Nese out. It was built on like the PASS, or the People Against Swerve Strickland, which was pretty entertaining from the start. But now, seeing where it went, I'm kind of hating it now. It was a stupid idea from bad creative, and I think they're overplaying their hand on Mark Sterling, even if he's very funny. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, he's fucking funny as fuck. But it's just what's happening to Tony Nese that's bothering me, and yeah. Losing a handicap match to Swerve Strickland, even if Mark's the one who got pinned, Tony still loses a match. It still counts in his record. And fucking Nese almost had no offense off after the picture-in-picture. He was dominated by Swerve, and then Sterling got in the ring, ate a finisher, and then got pinned. I fucking hate this match. There are no spots of the match. This is like all bad booking right here. I don't even want to review this match. I want to review what comes after because that is what is relevant and what will actually build up to the next Tag Team Championship feud. So after Swerve wins the match, we get a shot backstage of Keith Lee being taken out by someone called Josh Woods. I'm not familiar with his work. And again, this would have worked better if it was a bigger name. But yeah, I mean, Josh Woods might be good. They might be like a nice first feud for Swerve and Keith. They're going to lose. But yeah, it did get some of Tony Nese's heat back since he wasn't pinned. And he managed to take out like a distracted Swerve Strickland. And then poses with his belt. Basically implying that they're going to be tag team partners. They're going to go up against Swerve and Keith. But I don't know about the rankings because I don't know how many wins like Tony Nese has. I think not much because Mark Sterling is his manager and he has to look funny. And yeah, they're not even on the rankings. This sort of doesn't make sense a little bit. So yeah, Tony Nese is probably going to take the pin against like Swerve and Keith. It's definitely not going to be against the other guy that I forgot the name of because he just looks too like monstery to take a pin. So yeah, a terribly booked match, a terrible direction for the story of PASS, and the next Tag Team Championship challengers are not even in the top 5, so this doesn't make sense. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this part. I could have done without this, so like, next segment. So after this, we have a promo by Malachi Black on Miro, and of course, Malachi Black is just a fire promo, as we all know. Basically tries to recruit Miro in his faction, and he says this in a very like sacrilegious, well-delivered, and almost like a cult leaderish sort of way, and basically offers Miro everything he wants to sit on the throne. The figurative throne. And Malachi Black, such a smart dude, such a like smart artistic dude, with not only his costumes, with not only his like ink, but also with his speech and his eloquence. And then after this, Brody King shows up from the dark and then challenges Darby to a coffin match. Probably gonna be sick. Darby's probably gonna lose, but it's gonna be a great match. These two work very well together. So yeah, after this, we get a recap of Pac's adventures around the world with the All-Atlantic Championship. And the audio sort of breaks, but it still like brings across the idea that Pac defeats LJ Leary or whatever his name is in Over the Top Wrestling, and that he is like spreading the name of AEW all over the world. But I think Pac should come back now and defend it on Dynamite at least once, at least. Because what's the point about that title if it's not even going to be defended in Dynamite or Rampage or like in an AEW show? So yeah, this is kind of dumb. Just like invite your challengers for the title to the States. Invite them in a Dynamite or Rampage or like a pay-per-view, whatever. Because what's the point of an AEW championship, a mid-card championship, if you're not even going to defend it in your own soil? So yeah, that's my only problem with that. After this, we get like a recap of Miyu Yamashita's win over Thunder Rosa, and this like gets to the point and sets up the match that comes directly after. Okay, so for that match, we have Thunder Rosa versus Miyu Yamashita for the AEW Women's Championship, and this comes after that recap where we see Miyu Yamashita pinning Thunder Rosa 1, 2, 3, clean in the ring, earning this match. And for me, I was surprised that this wasn't like Yuka Sakazaki or like anyone else in the roster, because Miyu Yamashita did not like impress me much in Cyberfight. She was like alright, but she wasn't like a Maki Ito who like dominated everyone like personality wise. She was like the leader of her team, and I thought like Miyu Yamashita was just like an underling. But when I checked, she was like a 3-time world champion for them, and is the perfect one to challenge for Thunder Rosa because she's like one of their taller wrestlers. She looks attractive and she is pretty believable going against these like larger Western women. And people have a problem with Joshi's going up against Western women wrestlers where there's little to no comparison because the only ones who can like compete are like the Four Horsewomen, Thunder Rosa, and like maybe... Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't even think Britt Baker is on like the same level as these girls. Like the Joshis move as fast as the men do. They work as fast as the men do and should be pushed. In like AEW or in any other company. Just like Asuka. Just like Kairi Hojo. Maybe not so much. But yeah, just like Asuka. And I'm probably gonna review their tournament show tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Let's get back to the match. So yeah, this started out like I described. It started out really fast. Both of these women move like the men do. They wrestle at a pace that, like a lot of the current women's division, doesn't really do. They manage to get the crowd into the match at the start, but then a botch happens and it derails the entire match. And it sort of proves me right in my opinion about Miyu Yamashita. Like, she's not world champion quality. She's no Shoko Nakajima. She's no Yuka Sakazaki. I think she belongs firmly in the mid-card of Tokyo Joshi Pro until she proves that she's, like, better than, like, she showed here. Because the match was pretty sloppy. They did a lot of kicks that... like, didn't feel right where they were placed. There was also the botch, like I said earlier, where, like, Thunder Rosa tried to do a suplex on Miyu on the apron, but then Miyu sort of falls off. She gets stuck in the apron, and then this looks really awkward and, like, visibly, like, botchy. It derailed the entire match for me. I was starting to get into this, and then not even the cool moves that Miyu did could save the match. But there is like, I think 2 spots of the match here. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that later. But there was just a sloppiness to most of the things that Miyu Yamashita did. So yeah, I think they tried to go for a show stealer here. They wrestled a fast pace. Miyu Yamashita did some nice like rebound kicks. I think that's what I'm going to call them. They're going to be like spots of the match later anyway. And they managed to get the crowd like twice, and that's already more than a lot of like women's wrestling matches. If Britt Baker isn't in them, they just don't get the crowd. But this match somehow did, even like despite that botch. I don't know if it's like the ring size, the nerves, the adjustment to a new environment, but these two just didn't have as good of a match as they did in Tokyo Joshi Pro. And as for Thunder Rosa, she kept this match together. I don't know what would happen if like this was like someone else who was like not as good as Thunder Rosa. Like imagine if Miyu faced like Jade Cargill, Kiera Hogan, Red Velvet, basically the baddies, or like anyone in that level like Tay Conchi, Anna Jay or something. Imagine if she went up against those women who are not as good as Thunder, with her current like nerves or something. I don't know. This match would be a stinker and Miyu would probably never be in AEW again. But good thing it's Thunder Rosa, so she might get another shot. Okay, so for the finish of the match, it's not going to be a top spot, so I'm going to say it here. So Thunder Rosa manages to get a kick to Miyu's head, and then she delivers the Fire Thunder Driver for the win. Pretty underwhelming. It wasn't as good as the Tokyo Joshi Pro match. Like, by far. So yeah, now for the spots of the match. And you know what? Surprisingly, all of these spots are Yamashita's spots. So yeah, number 3 is like a kicking combination spot that she does on a kneeling Thunder Rosa. She nails all of them, and this looks pretty cool right here. Like, you know what? If they just kept the match in the ring, if they didn't do the apron spot that caused the botch, this would have been a lot better, because this is where this girl excels. So yeah, number 2 spot is like one of those like bounce off the wall kicks that Miyu does. The best one is the one outside. It's the one that's featured in the AEW page, where she like spins off of the ring and then does the kick, but she also does this like on like the turnbuckle and stuff. And yeah, this one looks pretty good here. I actually saw this highlight before I watched the match, so I thought it was going to be like a banger, but yeah, it just fell short. But this spot looked really good. And then for the number one spot of the match, it has to be the rolling German suplex that she does on Thunder. I mean, it doesn't look like how the men do it, but it's impactful all the same. And it's the number one spot of this match. So yeah, this is like a TV undercard only match. It's not the worst of the night. The handicap match was still like trash, even if that didn't have botches. But yeah, sad to say this match wasn't really good, and this is a bad first impression of the fans to Miyu Yamashita. Hopefully she gets a second shot, but in my opinion, try with another woman in the roster. Like, give it a couple of months and then bring Miyu back. Like, maybe for the next one, bring in Julia Nagano. Okay, so for the main event, we still have like 30 minutes of TV time, but the show ends after 18 minutes of match, so we still have 12 minutes until like we reach 2 hours. So I don't know what's going on there. They should have booked more segments. I was expecting actually an interview segment after the women's title match, but yeah, there's some bad choices being made. What can you do? So yeah, so the main event is Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia in Bryan Danielson's return match. And this guy just pulls no stops. He fucking does outside dives and lands on his head or his like face or something. He goes after Garcia full speed from the start. And we have this nice spot where Danielson is like full mounting Garcia and he's just no-selling hits. After that, he just like beats the shit out of Garcia. Like, this match felt like a match between two members of the Blackpool Combat Club where Daniel Garcia belongs. Because he did the elbow thing, like the Blackpool Combat Club elbow thing. After that, he pulls off the rubber padding off the floor, exposing the concrete. And then we get to see this utilized after like a critical storytelling moment that happens shortly after this. So yeah, Danielson and Garcia fight some more, and then we get this spot where Danielson goes for a missile dropkick, or like, it's like a horizontal dropkick, not really missile, I don't know what this is called, but it's like a dropkick where Danielson is like in the supine position, and then he lands on his shoulders, on his back, and then we get a spot where he sells his concussion. We even get it on commentary that he might have knocked himself out. We also get a shot of a fan who knows about all this shit and then looks worried, and then Jericho calls him a mark. And then Danielson just doesn't get up. He pretends to be concussed, and then they milk it on commentary. They milk it in the ring. I think everyone thought he was injured again because the spot looked very convincing. But when Daniel Garcia started attacking him, like very lightly, it looked like, we knew that the match was going to go on and that Danielson was fine. And then when Danielson does his like walk on the turnbuckle, does a flip, that like thing he does like all the time, it's confirmed that he's okay. Or is he? Because he then runs the ropes. He dodges a clothesline from Garcia, but then he falls to the floor and then pretends to be concussed again, planting even more doubt to the fans' heads. And then after some milking, we get the spot. We get the DDT on the concrete spot that again confirms that Danielson is alright. Because he just lies down on the floor, and then Bryce Remsburg goes out of the ring. He stops the match for a while. He sends Garcia on his way. They pretend it's a shoot, and then the next shot we get of Danielson is of him bleeding. So somewhere down the line here, he bladed, or did he? So that's what I really liked about this match. There was a lot of like fucking just like misdirections everywhere. They used the shit out of Danielson's like concussion history in order to tell a great story for a main event to a special Dynamite. And this is exactly where you should place a storytelling match. Not on a pay-per-view where people expect bangers. It's right here on the main event of a TV show. And then in picture-in-picture, as the doctors are checking on Danielson, Garcia throws him back in the ring and then continues to kick his ass. For me, finally confirming that he's alright. And then we get a lot of working on his head. And then for some reason, every time Danielson gets control, or like that specific one time where he gets control, where he like escapes from a superplex, he then does like an avalanche backdrop on Garcia. It always seems to be a move that also hurts himself, that also involves his head. And the frickin' sell job that Danielson does here is just like masterful. He never lets up. And then for the final stretch of the match, we get some big moves, some technical wrestling. We got Danielson trying to make a valiant comeback until he's stopped by a mysterious hand from the apron. So after Danielson hits his like running knee to Garcia from like the apron to the outside, Danielson throws Garcia back in, but when Danielson makes his way back, like an arm grabs his leg, delaying him. This gives Garcia enough time to recover and then hit Danielson with a pile driver, but he doesn't pin him. He goes for a scorpion deathlock or a sharpshooter, whatever you want to call it, and then he turns it into like a crusher, like the calf crusher, but with the sharpshooter. So it's like a sharpshooter crusher, a scorpion death crusher. That sounds better. And then he wins the match by making Danielson like pass out. Daniel Garcia just beat Bryan Danielson on the main event of a Dynamite. Holy fucking shit. So yeah, what a great way to put over Garcia. He's had the biggest win of his career ever against like Danielson, while his opponent from Death Before Dishonor isn't even on TV. So yeah, this is like an amazing win for Daniel Garcia and for JAS. They've won like 2 straight, 3 after Rampage. But yeah, I really like this decision. I'm pretty surprised, but I'm not upset at Danielson putting over like this young talent right here. Plus, it wasn't like a clean win. There was like clearly cheating involved, and Danielson, like in kayfabe, wasn't 100%. So they managed to protect him there, plus he fucking fainted. So yeah, all of you who hate that Danielson lost to Daniel Garcia, go fuck yourselves. This was a great match and a great decision by Tony Khan. I hope that happens to like his other booking decisions, which have been inconsistent as of late. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. So number 3 is the DDT to the floor that led to the cut. But just because this confirmed that Danielson was okay, it didn't plant any doubt in our minds, this ends up at number 3. Because this was clearly a worked spot that was supposed to look very devastating, and it did look devastating, but I enjoyed the spots more that blurred reality from fantasy, or fiction, or whatever you call pro wrestling. Kayfabe, that's it. And then for the number 2 spot, it's when Danielson first sold the concussion. Like, he went for like the flying dropkick, the flying supine dropkick, and then he stayed on the floor for a while. It was the first time we thought he was hurt, and then this like really told the story of the match. Actually, just lump in all of Danielson's selling of his concussion in here because it was well done, but this first one was the most impactful. But the best looking one was the avalanche backdrop, where Danielson also looked to have hurt himself. And then for the number 1 spot of the entire match, it's the finish. Not just because Daniel Garcia won, but because it sets up a feud between Danielson and Hager. It gives Jake Hager something to do. It will probably get a good match out of him. And just the way they did this was so like sports entertaining that it makes even Daniel Garcia feel like a part of the faction now. And then I liked how Daniel Garcia went straight for a pile driver, and then that he didn't want to end the match with the 1-2-3. He wanted to end it via submission, so he went for the Scorpion Death Crusher, making Danielson faint and protecting him as well. So yeah, after this, Garcia, Jericho, and Hager celebrate in the ring. They like fucking gloat over Danielson, and that's how we close the show. So yeah, this match was really fucking good. Some nice storytelling. It prolongs the feud between the BCC and the JAS, and this match just made Daniel Garcia. So yeah, this episode of Dynamite was really good. It had like one match that shouldn't have existed, and that was the handicap one. And even if the women were sloppy and like botched a bit, it wasn't like terrible. It wasn't unwatchable. But the rest of the matches, especially the main event and the first match on the card, were really good. So they're my top two, followed by the both of the Starks matches, followed by the Women's Championship, and then the fucking handicap match that should burn in hell. So yeah, those were my match rankings. That's my review of Dynamite. I don't know if I'm going to review the Tokyo Joshi Pro Show because I still have a paper to do, but hopefully I get some help with that. But yeah, for the next 2 weeks, my weekends are going to be relatively free and I'm going to be able to review whatever show there is. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this week's Dynamite. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you don't know me. Hit that bell notification for future videos. And please, watch my shit.